Welcome back to Meet Munich, my friends. So happy to bring you yet another CDTM related content. So I really want to give you the best overview on all these applications, on everything you need to know. And after we talked with some centerlings and I made this overview video as well and the guide, I feel like, I'm giving you here some information on the center, but then I thought, okay, it's also really important actually that we talk to the people who make this program happen, So I'm very happy that I have Aaron Merlin Defort as today's guest. So he's part of the management team at the CDTM, and we really talk about everything in terms of the vision of the CDTM, what is their community actually like, also application, what do all people have in common, and let me tell you, his answers were incredibly thoughtful and surprised me, so it's definitely a very worthwhile episode. At the beginning of my channel I said that I'm not an expert at this and there may be hiccups, and if you're along for the ride then I would really appreciate that. So basically, without further ado, the video footage fell off. I did not record it. I don't know what happened, but basically the main learning is always take two cameras. So unfortunately I cannot bring you video footage in the traditional sense. I did find though a creative solution, so I would really urge you to give this video a try. It is packed with so many insights. So let's get straight into the conversation with Aaron.
You guys, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm really happy to share a little bit about the CDTM.
Awesome. So this is going to be a very good episode. So last time, and it was some very impressive numbers. I mean, you have arguably one of the most influential networks really in and around Munich. Accumulated 11% of total venture capital investment in Germany in 2022. And I feel like that is then kind of begs the question almost like what makes the center so unique and what is kind of the goal at the end of this add-on program?
Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe two things. I mean, the first thing, what makes the center so unique, I think, honestly, there's a lot of path dependencies. So we were really early in building a community with people who all wanted to change something with technology, and I think we can be so successful because we've been attracting these kind of people for the last 20 years, and there's a lot of collaboration between different classes, and there's still the insights from the people who were here 25 years ago. Like this year we turned 25. The people from 25 years ago, they're still here and active and bring their ideas, bring together all the people. So I think this is really what makes the CDTM so unique, because it's a closely knit community that has been going in this direction for a really long time. So we had a lot of accrual effects.
Awesome. I think we're going to talk about the community and what is this all about in a second also in the video. So people here CDTM, and then what is, would you say, the ultimate goal of the add-on program really?
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal, and we have this vision statement that was created in 2015 or 16 to connect, educate, and empower the innovators of tomorrow. And I think this is really the essence of what we do. We want to connect people, so we connect people inside of the class with people from different backgrounds, internationality, gender. We really try to create a diverse class, so to connect the people amongst each other. Then we connect them with our lecturers, our project partners, the professors. So we really want to have a broad community where we connect people so that different ideas can come together.
Yeah.
Then educate, where we want to teach them mindset, tools, all of this. And empower, we want to really make it possible for all the students that they feel like they can really make a dent. They can really make a difference, and they have it in themselves to change stuff. Yeah. So this is really what we want to do with the program.
And I feel like that's so powerful in terms of the mindset. I think it's like shown in psychology, like also like so much is also internal work in terms of like who do you surround yourself with and what are your like inner beliefs you have. And I feel like if you can achieve that with students, that they can actually have a dent, as you say, and that is incredibly powerful. So I feel like something which is very unique to this center, to kind of the setup you have here, is that you have a kind of research going on over the center assistance, and then kind of also the education part and entrepreneurship. So how do these synergies kind of align, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal of the study program has always been education.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to educate future leaders in the space of innovation so that they can change with technology for the better, right? I don't want to say the world, right? But bring about change, right?
Yes.
and use their skills to bring some kind of positive notion into the world. So that's what we want to do. And so the research has always been very important, because that's where the groundwork lies, because we want to educate and empower people to bring change through technology. And the technology is based most often on research. I mean, what we do here at the CDTM probably is not the most in-depth theoretical research on breakthrough technologies, right? That what we do as center assistants. But we bring this notion of research and scholarship here, and I think especially also in the first core course there's a big emphasis on research, because you need to do your research in order to be able to build something on top of it. And that entrepreneurship, I think, is really one of the major avenues that people use to bring stuff into the world, at least out of the CDTM program. It's not like this by design, so it has been growing over the last 25 years, this focus on entrepreneurship, but this is not necessarily our goal. For us, it's important that people bring innovation into the world. And if they do it as an entrepreneur, if they do it at Siemens, where they invent a new turbine, whatever, we don't care. We want change to be brought into the world, positive change, and that's what we want to achieve with the program.
Yeah. I really like also the part of like research in terms of like what you learn to kind of critically assess and the way you think.
Yes.
And I feel like that's something like to just not take anything for granted, but say, okay, like where does this come from? How is the study? Like just kind of questions you ask yourself.
Yes.
I feel like that's going to help you in any position probably.
Exactly. So this notion of hypothesis-based testing and really this scientific approach to the world, I think is really powerful. So I think this makes a lot of sense to have this baseline also for us.
Awesome. Perfect. So something which our listeners might not know, because it's actually quite new, is that you're expanding to Valencia. So that sounds very, very exciting. Congrats on that. So maybe you can talk us a little bit about like how did this come about? What is kind of the overall vision for CDTM?
So back in 2015-16, I don't remember right now, when we also really put this vision statement in the center of what we did, we also created a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And this is like a goal that is probably difficult to achieve, but we strive to go for it. And there we said, hey, we want to be Europe's leading program for innovators. And right now we see ourselves, or we've been wondering, okay, CTM is amazing, right? But we only have 50 students per year, which is nice, right? And it makes a difference, but we actually think that there's so much potential for change and there's so much talent that we just need to expand. And we've been thinking about lots of different ways on how to expand. Inside of Munich, now we're doing different programs, like we've got one additional program that's called the Digital Changemaker, one now that is about 6G, business model and design. So we really try to branch out inside of Munich, but then we also think that it makes sense to build additional centers outside of Munich to really be able to create something similar in a new location. And we believe that this is extremely important for our vision, because if we want to connect, educate and empower the innovators of tomorrow, we need to tackle them everywhere and not just some people who study at LMU and TUM. So that's why we went for this. Why Valencia is what a lot of people ask. I mean, when we looked at different locations, we did like an in-depth process on how to choose, and there were a lot of like things that people don't really think about when they think about this. It's like, is it possible to do something like this next to your studies? Like, do you have the flexibility? Do you have study fees? How does the PhD system work so that people who pursue their PhDs can actually work in the center? So all of these things had to be taken into account. So a lot of countries right away dropped out because they just don't provide the same amount of infrastructure that we need. And then we just did a ranking, and then our prepared mind was met with an opportunity because the city and the government of Valencia and the universities of Valencia made us a very nice offer and how we could expand there. So really it all came together.
Perfect. That sounds so cool. I think that's something which, I think our international listeners are definitely going to know, but that in Germany there's this notion that you can always do like a working student position or some other things, like this whole ecosystem in Munich, but it's not given that in a lot of other countries you just like studies 100%, but you don't have the flexibility or anything given for that. So that's definitely a very interesting point you're bringing up.
Yeah, we needed to have more flexibility in the system, and Spain is kind of similar in the way that they study and also do their PhDs, which is also like in Anglo-Saxon countries, for example. It's unthinkable to work like this. So
very cool. Okay, perfect. So we talked a little bit about the vision and kind of your structure. So I really liked the video you did on like CDTM, and just kind of you had different people talk about what it's like really. And in the thing I heard the most was like CDTM being a home and kind of where you feel safe and just kind of its environment. And I think you said like over this kind of past years, you've really built up this community where you connect between classes and just people have a very strong affiliation to CDTM. And I was just kind of wondering like what makes that happen? Like how do you foster this community, this environment at CDTM?
Yeah, I think there's 3 things. First, we really stressed this from the beginning. Secondly, the CDTM is really like a complete grassroots organization, so people really feel involved. And the third is that also the space here that we have is kind of like a flat share. So now you've looked around a little bit, we have the kitchen there, everything is very just like a really big flat share. And I think these 3 things, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail on all of them, make that people feel so welcome here. So and think that the community is their home, or believe it, and it also is in a way. So the first thing, we really stressed this from the very beginning. From the kickoff, we want to make sure that people are aware. We invite alumni back who tell about their stories. And I think people, the most common answer in an interview when I ask people, why do you want to come to the CDTM? They say the community. So people know it even before we tell them. And this also kind of makes this a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
If you really believe that this is what you're going to find, then you're going to build this. So people really come here looking for this community, and then they create it in themselves and they find it ready-made. And I think this is also due to the fact that everything here is grassroots. They can organize whatever they want. We give a lot of freedom, and we also incentivize and wish for action to foster this collaborative community spirit. So that's really nice. And the third thing, as I said, here the place. Every student gets a transponder who can come here 24/7. They study here not only for CDTM but for anything else. And there's the kitchen, there's parties that we organize. So we also try to make this space a home for everyone, so that really this home notion that you said is also in a very physical location. Exactly. So I think this is what makes the center a home or community, or both.
Perfect. That sounds really nice. All right, so I really like this, the notion of it being a home and just kind of this feeling, and we had like the vision, and then let's go a little bit more into the program, so the details of it. So I think something which might be surprising to some people who don't know maybe the program so well is that there are actually also grades. And so there are different courses, and you get, like I said in my overview video, like the honors degree, so you do ECTS. So how did this come about? Like, what is the purpose of this and how is it structured?
So the first question, how did it come about? That's a funny question. In 2004, there was an initiative from the Bavarian government, the Elite Network. There's also a bunch of other programs in it, like FIM. I think you're also going to make a video about this. They're all accredited by the Elite Network of Bavaria. So we are a study program that has been accredited at some point in the past. So in there we obviously, we are a study program, and as a study program we need to give grades and we need to give ECTS. And I think it makes a lot of sense to give people some kind of guideline, like clear rules on what to expect here. And I think we are very, very closely affiliated with the two universities, LMU and TUM. So we are really a part of the university, an extension of the universities. And so our study program works just like a normal study program, and I think it gives a lot of structure to what we do, what the students expect, how the roles are distributed, and gives clarity. And inside of this structure and clarity, then we can go a little bit more wild.
Perfect. That sounds very nice. Also, like, there's going to come, as I said, with film and some other videos on the Elite Netzwerk Bayern or the Elite Network of Bavaria in more detail. So if that sounds a little bit strange at the moment, don't be worried. So in the overview video, we talked a little bit about the 3 main courses, the core courses. So there's a trend seminar, the MPD Managing Product Development, and then the Entrepreneurship Laboratory at the end. And as I understand it, at least, it's kind of supposed to model the different stages of kind of a life cycle of an innovation. So I thought this approach is very interesting. Like, how did you choose it? What would you say is the main benefit of going that way?
Yes. Why do we think this makes a lot of sense to show this innovation cycle? Is because to really be able to understand what you want to do, you need to first dig into this trend research, look into the future. What could be potential interesting innovation? Where are we going? Is there a market pull? Is there technology push? How can we bring these two things together? And to really go into this, to really do the groundwork.
Yeah.
Right. This is also what I mentioned earlier about the research that needs to be done in the beginning, because every innovation that you bring has some kind of solid baseline, and this baseline is rooted in the past and in the future, because you need to be ready for the market, but you also need to know what is possible. And so in the first course, we bring these two things together, looking at what are the trends, what is the technology, what can we do today that will still be viable in 20 years from now. And then we have the manual product development, where we then think, okay, so now we have this, how can we make a product that really targets to this market and use this technology, and then really understand, hey, what is a desirable product and how can we build it, how can we prototype it and find a market for it. And in the third core course, then we really go into the market. So what is the right market, what's the right price, who's the customer, B2B, B2C, B2B2C, whatever. How do we price it? And I think this whole cycle of innovation really starts from this baseline research, goes via the product into the market. And this is relevant for all areas. As I said earlier, Siemens or startup, everywhere you need to do these steps. Wherever you go, you need to be able to foster innovation from the ground up until some kind of market, and someone needs to pay for it, because otherwise you just are not sustainable in that sense. So we believe this makes a lot of sense to think about it in this, in these 3 steps, which doesn't mean that we won't ever change our opinion.
Yeah.
Right now we're thinking about maybe putting the hypothesis testing even more into the focus. And then only, but that's maybe a different story. But
yeah, awesome. So maybe for somebody who may not know like what we're talking about with hypothesis testing, I'm always thinking of like, it's very obvious kind of, but then it's not, like kind of you think about, okay, like maybe something is true or something not, and you say, I don't know, my customer is X, Y, and Z, and then you would go out and see like, okay, is my customer actually that? And then you would say, okay, this is true or this is false, and very, very easy version, like it doesn't work that way, but just kind of. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the education and the toolbox. So I think we got a little bit of an insight there as well. So you said that kind of they can really acquire this. Do you have like any examples which maybe make it a bit more graspy for people to understand in terms of like toolbox that they can acquire? So it would be hypothesis, or what would you say with the toolbox?
You mean which kind of tools are in the box?
Yes.
In the end? I mean, I think what I said earlier, I think still makes kind of sense. It's like, so the tools that they acquire is really thinking through a problem very deeply. So being able to do the research, being able to ask the right questions, being able to validate, and I don't know what the opposite of validating is. Devalidate a hypothesis, right? They get the tools to really understand new technology, think about what is the customer. They get a tool to think about markets. What is a achievable, desirable market? How can I define that kind of market? How can I build a product that caters to a need? I mean, in VC or in startups, we always talk about product market fit.
Yes.
So we really give them the tools to do this very specifically. In basically all the 3 courses lead up to understanding how to get a product market fit. So there's all these kind of small tools, I would say, that give you then the big tool to understand, hey, when do I achieve this?
Very, very cool.
Yes.
Awesome. So something which I also find interesting, and I think is the Taskforces. So because if the listeners have seen, and maybe some of the student initiatives there have like internal work, and kind of the Taskforces reminded me a little bit of that. But
Yes.
maybe you can talk through what are they, like what can people expect at them, and why do you have them?
Yes. So maybe I start with why do we have them. In the beginning, the CDTM was one person who wanted to do something great, and we had these ambitious students, so they started and said, hey, we're just going to do this together. So we have the task force so that students can really bring themselves into the CDTM and make the CDTM their own, also not only their own program, but their own organization. So the students are an integral part of the organization via the task forces. Otherwise, this could not function. We can't screen, 350 applications. We can't make advertisement so that all of these people apply just by ourselves.
Yeah.
As the management team. So we do need the task forces. So that's the first thing. But what can they do? What do they do there? It's really to come back to our vision statement. We really want to empower the students also by giving them the task force work. To be fair, there's task forces where there's more and less flexibility and freedom in what you can actually do. But in the end, it's about really giving them full responsibility for a task and letting them see it through, and empowering them to bring in their own ideas and their own initiatives and everything. What can they expect? I mean, I already alluded to some things. There's the marketing, for example, the student marketing. So think about different initiatives there. Think about workshops that can attract students. Think about different kinds of initiatives on how we can attract interested and talented students here to the CDTM so that they apply. Then organizing like the kickoff week. This is something that the students do. Then we have this big event, the Inspire and Dine. Maybe somebody has heard about it. It's great, you should visit it.
Definitely.
It's a big speaker series, which is also fully organized by the students. So in terms of who should the speakers be, speaker attraction, talking to them, acquisition of the speakers, then going to the location, finding the location, making sure that everything works, catering. All of this is also done by the students. So I would say there's a lot of external facing events that are done in task forces, but then also a lot of internal facing development and thinking about how can we make the center a better place. Also in terms of really like physical space.
No, but that's really cool, because then I think they can acquire another skill set also.
Yes.
Like I think in my video I talked about the Climate Club and the Mostly Awesome podcast, and those are just one of the examples where you can venture into something else apart from the core courses which you already offer.
Exactly.
All right. So this is very interesting. I mean, we talked about the core courses and the task forces, and this is a home, and there's so much really that the center, I feel like, or this whole community really gives to you as a student. So, but then in return, I think something which people always ask themselves, like, okay, how much time do you have kind of to go through this? What would be your recommendation?
Yes.
I know it's individual, but still.
Yes. I mean, just for everything, but especially for something that offers so many opportunities as the CDTM, the more you put in, the more you get out.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to not think about individual hours, but I would say you should be able to, especially in the beginning, I mean, the trend seminar, I think, is clear, it's full time for 7 weeks, but then during the MPD and the E-Lab or the other 2 semesters, I guess it makes sense to allocate maybe 20 hours.
Mm-hmm.
This is not only coursework, but there's so much happening here, and you want to have the time. And if you don't have it, you will probably say, hey, I missed out on these things, and it's sad. And otherwise, if you also don't have this time already allocated, you miss out on other things in your life, which we also really don't want. We want you to have your free time and everything. So it's nice if you have these 20 hours that are allocated to the CDTM, in addition to your free time, in addition to your main studies. So probably you'd have to, a lot of students reduce their main study commitment during the 2 semesters that they're here, so that they have enough time for everything. And I think this makes sense. So, yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So something which I think you said, like all these opportunities really that students have, and that's something I always say, like the more you give in, the more you get out 100%. You also offer alumni mentoring, and you have like personal development courses like those hackathons. I mean, we talk about this in the extensive video if you want to check it out. But there's also academic counseling. I thought that was very interesting. It kind of maybe goes back to like the whole research part of it, but like why did you choose to do that? Or like what is kind of the goal of offering academic counseling? Because I feel like that's something which is quite rare.
Yeah. So we really, as I said earlier, Siemens or startup. But I think the academic career is also a very interesting career where you can really push the boundaries a lot, and where we need innovative people. So we really want to open up this possibility. I'm not 100% sure, right? It's difficult to assess, but I think maybe 1/5 of all CDTM alumni have pursued a PhD. So 200 out of 1,000 have pursued a PhD. So I think it is a very relevant career track for people who go to the CDTM. Also a couple of very interesting professors have come out of the CDTM or went through our study program. For example, Sami Haddadin, who's professor for informatics and electrical engineering at the TUM, who also had calls to Stanford and the like. So really pushing the boundaries in robotics. Then Isabel Welpe, maybe some people know her. She also went through our program, also at the TUM. Then we have like alumni who are like associate professors at the MIT. So I think this whole academic world is something that is very interesting for our students, and we also want to enable them and show them that it's an interesting career track, because there is so much to do, and I think the people who are here have the right skill set to also pursue an academic career and to really bring forward humanity. And then I think in terms of science, I'm allowed to say it, so that we really want to also focus on this, that this is a viable career track and very interesting, and that this is something that people should consider, and by giving them the academic counseling, like the professor who can support them, maybe also opening up this opportunity a little bit more. So yes, this is why I think academics are also a very important part of what the CDTM is about.
That's very, very cool. I think there's also maybe something which various programs of the Elite Network maybe have, like at FIM it's similar in terms of like that you have academic and kind of mentor, and at least, I don't know, I know a lot of other students who maybe don't have it as much in the mind that it could be interesting to go into academics, or like imposter syndrome, like how do I write a paper, like how does this whole thing work, and if you have somebody who's really there to guide you, that probably definitely enhances the odds that you were to pursue that. Yes,
and I think it's the CAs also come in interestingly, the management team, because we do pursue our PhD, but we're also in this hands-on management of the operations of this little education startup, as we sometimes call it. So we also, I think, give a very interesting career perspective to the students just by what we do, and they can see, okay, they do research, maybe for me, maybe not for me. They do management work, maybe for me, maybe not for me. And so we're very close to them. And I think this also helps in this bridging the gap between what is now and what comes later.
Perfect. Terrific. Thanks so much for the overview on that. All right, so we had like a very interesting discussion so far on everything, like the overview and then kind of the details of the program, what the community is about. So I think people are like, okay, I want to join CDTM. Yes. This sounds super cool. So let's talk a little bit about application. So I know that every person is different. And I mean, you have, like you said, you strive for a very diverse class, which I think has a lot of value in it. Is there something that you can kind of derive, like characteristics which people have in common, or like who would thrive maybe at the CDTM, something?
Yes,
in part?
I mean, you sent me the question earlier and I've been thinking about it, and I think it really comes down to two things, and that's curiosity and energy. Mm-hmm. So if you lack one of the two, this is not the place for you. Like, you need to be curious because you will be faced with challenges that you have not met yet, and you need to be interested in them. And you need to be curious about learning from the other people. I mean, you said diverse class. You need to want to be exposed to a diverse audience. So you need to be curious about this, and you need to bring a lot of energy, because you're in charge. I mean, you're in charge in the task force, you're in charge in the project. We didn't talk about the projects a lot, but everything is done with a project partner.
Yes.
There's no manager who tells you what to do. You're going to do the things by yourself, and so you need to bring a lot of energy just to... I don't think that everybody necessarily needs to be a self-starter, and definitely not everybody needs to be an extrovert, but you need to have a high level of energy to want to change something and being able to. I mean, I know now from having seen a lot of people in my life and my studies, there's just different levels of energy, and that's totally fine. And you just need to have a high level of energy to be able to take something out of the CDTM. Yeah, so I think these two things, curiosity and energy, this is really... And there, when people now say, oh, well, I don't find this in my CV or whatever, you can look at your CV and you can think about, do I show these two things just by what have I done before? Have I been venturing in different areas? Did I do things that are not only in the curriculum? Do I do things that are on top? Do I show a lot of energy in the group projects that I have been doing? So you can assess if you have it, and then you can tease out if you have it and then connect it to your past experiences. But I think these two are really, really key.
I love them. I think that's a very, for me, unexpected, but I really like them. No, because that's very much to the essence of what the person is.
Yes.
And I think that's, you see how somebody shows up every day, if they're
Yes.
curious and if they give back to the community, if they come
Yes.
with this high level of energy, and that just then elevates everybody if there's it that way. And that I think that makes such a difference.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so when people who come in here are very good,
Yes.
and they've most likely been at the very top of their cohort for all their lives, right? In school, in university, wherever they've most likely been really at the top. And now they come here and they meet all these others who are the same. As somebody said it the other day, they all have been, I don't know the English term, Klassensprecher. They've all been the class representatives in their high school. It's obviously not exactly true, but kind of this is the profile that arrives here.
I think there's a lot of value in that. Like when you are in this ecosystem, I feel like there is this point where you just kind of think about, okay, I'm not the top of the iceberg here.
Yes.
Like I know 100 people, like no joke, who are doing way more things than I've ever done and gone to greater places. And that's not in a demotivating way for me, but it's more of like, what can you achieve? And if you have this open communication and you get that, then it's just motivating. Then it's just like, hey, these people did the program and they're going these places and I can do that as well. Then I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. So everyone here is better than you at something.
Yeah.
And you can learn so much from being curious and trying to figure out, okay, what is this person better at than me and what can they teach me? Because you're also better at something than the other people. And so this learning from each other, I think, is also an extremely, extremely important aspect that we didn't touch on yet. But I think this peer learning is really super important. And for this also you need to have a lot of curiosity, because you need to figure out what are the other people really about.
Yeah, and that's so fascinating. I mean, at the end, it's all human connections and like these people and just kind of getting to know them and explore them. And I think that's an incredible chance you get to do at your studies. That's great. Yeah. All right, so in the video, I talked a little bit, and we're going to do application, we're going to have a lot of stuff as well on the CDTM. But I think people know, okay, that we have to iron in the essay and the kind of the motivational letter. And then if you're successful, you're invited to the interview stage.
Yes.
So maybe just kind of for somebody who doesn't know anybody at CDTM, maybe like in general, what can people expect? Just at the interview stage, would you say?
I mean, in the end, there's 2 interviews. Both are half an hour. I'm pretty sure that we sent this information out to everyone who gets in, but so there's a personal interview where we really want to dig into your motivation. Why do you want to come to the CDTM? What do you bring? And there, it's a little bit about hard skills, but more about who are you as a person? What do you bring in? And I think this curiosity and energy, even though we don't explicitly look for it in interviews, maybe we should. That's what kind of also we want to hear and get at. So we really want to understand what brings you here and how can you contribute, and how do you want to contribute not only to the CDTM but also when you go out. What do you want to do with the skills and the network and all of this that you got here? So this is, I think, important in the first interview, and then the second interview, case interview, where we have a technical case and a business case depending on your background, but where we really want to figure out what are your rather hard skills. Are you ready to talk about technology? Are you ready to apply it to the real world? It's not like a McKinsey case, but it's like a case to trying to figure out what are your skills that you bring here that you can hand on to the class and contribute to the project.
100%. And I think also for people who maybe haven't done a case before or something, I'm sure it'll be adapted to, like we said about your background, but it's then something you can really look into. Like it's something I think you can prepare and just kind of think about it, and so you don't go in blank and it's like, okay, I've never done a case before. Not to be like, it's something which I think people can very much prepare for.
Yes, and the internet is full of everything.
Yeah, so you will have a lot of resources, I'm sure. Okay, so kind of a bit of a cliche question maybe, but like kind of what would be your top application tips for somebody who's like, hey, I really want to join?
Yeah, so I have two. So the first thing is really try to be yourself and bring this curiosity, even if it's very specific, into the essay, for example. Well, not into the essay, but into the application letter, right? Into the motivational statement. Really bring this in. Show us something of yourself. Because I've read, I don't know how many applications for CDTM. I really don't know. Maybe like 40 per semester. And I've been here for a really long time. So I've maybe read 40 letters per semester, and I've been here for a really long time. And we read the same stuff every time, so it's nice if you bring your own thing in. And then what is really crucial to get to the second stage is really put down everything that you've done into the right category. What you don't tell us in the application, we can't judge. So often somebody writes in their motivation letter, and then I've traveled through Africa for 10 months, but they didn't write it before ever, so we need to figure out, we traveled through Africa. And then we're like, okay, what does that mean? Like for a week, for 6 months, how can we judge this? So I think it's very important to make explicit what you've done before. I think this is definitely the top application advice. Put in what you have done, because what you don't put in, we can't judge, and then we will obviously not regard it. And we have a point system, right? For the first stage, we have a point system, and if you don't get the points, you can't get to the next round. And the points you can only get for stuff that we can award points for. So if we don't know, then you can't get the points.
Yeah, and maybe for like somebody who hasn't maybe seen how this looks like, but normally there are like different skills you can kind of put in and kind of what you're bringing in, and then just that's really your way how you can showcase that.
Exactly.
Because like I guess you know yourself better than anybody else, and if you can kind of, like I said, show something interesting, something maybe unexpected, that's really incredible.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the application advice that I think that's the most important. Bring your own particularity, right? Because everybody here is very different, but they're all very the same in a lot of ways. And the stuff that is the same, we don't need to hear that much about.
Yeah. 100%. So thanks so much, Aaron. This was an incredible episode. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'm sure everybody could take a lot from this conversation. So check out the other videos on CDTM if you're interested, and definitely apply and look at the website. And it's an incredible opportunity. Any last words or something you want to impart to the audience?
No, I'm just very thankful that I got this opportunity and being able to talk a little bit more about the CDTM, because most of the things that we now talked about are things that we don't often talk about and not a lot of people know. I would even say that current students can learn a lot from getting this more broad overview. Why do we do things the way that we do them? So I'm very happy for this opportunity. I think, CDTM is a great place, so you should definitely apply, and make the most of your journey. But even if you don't apply or don't want to apply or don't get in, just enjoy the journey. Like, there's so much great opportunities out there, especially here in Munich. There's just incredible amounts of stuff you can do.
Thanks so much.